Hi everyone, Petrik here. So someone pointed out to me that I haven't posted any monthly wrap-up since I completed my January wrap-up video, and there's a reason for this. It's because from the month of February starting from Chinese New Year up to pretty much the end of April, it has been non-stop hectic. And I'm not trying to make an excuse here, but basically because of this, I have managed to finish only one book per month, not counting manga volumes here, but when we're speaking about novels, I have only managed to finish reading one novels per month. So in total, up to the end of April, I have managed to finish only 6 novels. And yeah, this is crazy. At this rate, I will be done with probably 20 books by the end of the year, and I hope I can change that moving forward. And that means probably reading shorter books, much shorter books, because I'm just not in the space and also in the state of actually reading super big books at the moment. But let's talk about the last 3 books that I actually finished from the month of February, March, and also April. And thankfully, all these 3 books were solid reading, and also I managed to find the second 5-star books of the year 2026. Let's talk about the book that I finished in the month of February. This is for Scion by James Islington. So this is the advanced reading copy, and yeah, as some of you may know, I'm a huge fan of James Islington's books ever since the Lycaonius trilogy, and then his insane rise to popularity with the Hierarchy series. But I have been a fan of his storytelling ever since The Shadow of What Was Lost, which is the first book in the Lycaonius trilogy. But reading his books, I have always been reminded of maybe a possibility, a potential that he could also write a super huge and epic science fantasy series. And this Scion is not that kind of series. It is a cyberpunk, fast-paced, and very action-oriented reading experience. When it comes to comparison, I think as far as tone and also world and also pacing-wise, I think this is very reminiscent of the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. And yeah, I still enjoyed this one. I think it is a fun and fast-paced palate cleanser, especially in the middle of my usual big books reading. This is such a breath of fresh air. I think the total word count is almost 60,000 words long. So yeah, that's pretty short. It's like a long novella or maybe a short novel, but it is about an assassin or maybe a contractor, to be more precise, being tasked to solve this mystery to help this client that he find as a bit eccentric and also anomaly. And of course, this leads to, well, one thing leads to another, and of course, things gets more crazy and also more intense as the pages goes by. But as I mentioned, if you are expecting this to be a huge in scope world building and also very complex, this is not that kind of book. I should remind you of that, and I think it's better to go into this with the right expectation, because I know many people will be diving into Scion based on how much they love the Hierarchy series, and this is simply not that kind of book. The only similarity that this book has with the Hierarchy series is that it is told from the perspective of one character, and it is done in first-person present tense as well. And the ending, for a while, it was left a bit ambiguous, but also satisfying at the same time. I think this was to leave room on whether this will become a series or not, and it has been confirmed that this has become a series. I think a trilogy, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, if you want to read this one, this book will come out this year, I think in September 2026. So that's about 4 months from now. And yeah, if you are a fan of James Islington, I think you will want to read this one anyway, and I think it is still worth your time. Plus, you can actually finish this in about probably 3 hours of reading. So yeah, it is a quick one, a fun one, just not a mind-blowing epic reading experience, just like all of James Islington's usual fantasy books. And then the next book that I wanted to talk about, I think some of you know about this one already. I have posted a full spoiler-free review about this, and this is of course for this absolutely incredible book, The Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. So yeah, I posted a full review of this one already. I also got a chance to work as an art director for the Broken Binding edition of The Lonesome Dove with a cover art by John Anthony Di Giovanni. And yeah, I had a blast directing John Anthony and also Kevin Keel on this project. And yeah, I cannot wait for all of you to see how it all turns out. But anyway, this book though, it has been pitched to me so many times, and for a while, I was apprehensive. I mean, I have talked about this in my full spoiler-free review of Lonesome Dove, but I'm not a usual fan of Western stories, whether it is in books, video games or even movies and TV show. It's very rare that I get to enjoy a Western story. And it's just, I'm not having like a full bias against it or something, but this is just based on my experience. But when it's come to Western, I think the one that I absolutely love, it is the video game franchise, the Wild Arms video game franchise that begins from the PlayStation 1 era. And yeah, I feel old talking about this, but I absolutely love that Western-inspired epic fantasy and also sci-fi video game. So when I approached this, I was a bit apprehensive, but I cannot deny that based on how many people saying that I will end up loving this one, just like The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. That's also another standalone novel. So I give this one a try. And yeah, they were right again. They know my reading taste. And I end up absolutely loving this. Not at first though. Initially, the first part of this book definitely makes me question whether, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. Because although the characterizations were good right from the beginning, but I think the first part of the novel spent too much time, well, deciding or maybe discussing on who gets to poke Lorena. It was just too long. It's about 200 pages long, and most of the book, most of part one is spent on that. But it definitely play in the long run, even though I do think it still can be shortened a bit. But the characterizations of Lorena is one of the best things about the book. But it's not only her. Every single character in Lonesome Dove, they were just incredibly well written. By the end of this book, it felt like we really get to know them both inside and outside. We can actually write an essay about their behavior, their actions, and their philosophy for each single character in this book, especially the main characters such as Gus, Cole, Lorena, and more. And yeah, even characters that I dislike, I cannot help but feel invested in their storyline. I think that's a sign of a great storytelling. You don't have to really like the character in particular, but you have to be invested in the story. And even though I dislike this particular POV character, I cannot help but feel engaged with finding out what's going to happen next with this character and the characters that everyone get to meet, because these characters, their path definitely cross one another. And yeah, characterizations and also the slice of life somehow became the best part of Lonesome Dove, even though there were actually actions in this story about cattle drive from Texas to Montana. But I think at the end of the day, it is the characters that definitely make the book for me. And yeah, this book is actually quite brutal. I did not expect the story in Lonesome Dove to get this dark in places, but it is balanced with hope and kindness and also ambition as well. I love Lonesome Dove, and yeah, of course, this is the second book, the second 5-star books of the year 2026 for me. I end up loving this one so much. I ask question whether I should continue reading the remaining 3 books in the series, and some have said I should continue, some have said I shouldn't continue. But I think at this rate, I think I do need to find out more about the characters inside the Lonesome Dove series, or maybe read the prequels, because I know that there are 2 prequels storyline wise that happens before Lonesome Dove. So yeah, I will try to read those 2 at least, but I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe I will end up reading the sequel to this one first and then maybe go back to the prequel books. But yeah, I absolutely love Lonesome Dove. And if you haven't read this one, even though you're not a fan of Western story, please make sure to pick it up. I think this is a sign of masterful characterizations, and also, even though the writing, McMurtry utilized a head-hopping narration, that usually does not click with me well. But in this book, it just felt organic. I never felt disjointed. I never felt confused whose POV I'm reading. I always know whose POV I'm reading, even though each paragraph can jump between characters. It's just so good. I highly, highly recommend Lonesome Dove. So Lonesome Dove was a thick book. That's why in the month of March, I only managed to finish this one. I read that book from the month of February until the month of March. Probably at the beginning of March, I managed to finish that. And then I picked up another big book, and it is A Time of Dragons. Oh, sorry, this book, the title is Once There Were Heroes by Philip C. Quaintrell, and the name of the series is A Time of Dragons. And yeah, I always forgot that the name of this book is not A Time of Dragons, because it is just so centered in the middle. But anyway, this is not the first time I read anything by Philip C. Quaintrell. I have read his first Dragon Rider epic fantasy series, The Echo Saga, a series that is, I think, very suitable for those of us who love classic epic fantasy, but written with a modern narration. And that is Echo Saga, and it is the same for A Time of Dragons. I think it has been 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, since I read Rise of the Ranger, which is the first book in the Echo Saga series, and this one begins a new tale in the world of Vedra. But this one takes place about, I think, 12,000 years before the events of Rise of the Ranger. So it is a lot of years before that. This doesn't mean there is no Easter eggs in Once There Were Heroes, though, for those of us who have been reading the Echo Saga. But I can definitely tell you this. You can actually dive into this one without reading the Echo Saga, without reading any of them. Well, maybe you can read Rise of the Rangers, but I don't think you need to read the rest of the series. At least based on my experience of reading Once There Were Heroes. This is a multiple POV characters epic fantasy, and of course it takes its time, and probably that's the only con, because it definitely takes plenty of time before we start to see how everything connects from one POV to another. Well, many POV, basically, I think we have about 8 POV characters in Once There Were Heroes, and this one, this particular style of many POV characters was also done in Rise of the Ranger. And I can definitely tell that Philip C. Quaintrell has improved as a writer here, because in Rise of the Ranger, it was honestly kind of confusing to know who's who from the many POV characters and which factions they belong to. But it is not the case in Once There Were Heroes. Right from the epic prologue and also the many POV characters introduced, they all felt distinct already. But the downside, I guess, from A Time of Dragons, that Philip C. Quaintrell is telling an epic fantasy story here, and because of that, this book kind of functioned as a prologue, I believe. When you consider the length of the book, this is about 800 pages long. Not too many pivotal moments happen yet in Once There Were Heroes, but I think, as I said, based on the prologue, you can tell that Philip C. Quaintrell is preparing for everything to be unleashed in the next books. My favorite POV character in Once There Were Heroes is definitely Daijin Set. I think that's how you pronounce the name, Daijin. He's the one on the cover of the second book, In the Shadow of Kings. And yeah, I absolutely love Daijin Set's POV. There were so many amazing moments in his chapters, and I think Philip C. Quaintrell actually managed to write some of the best action sequence he has ever done, with Echo Saga combined into the equation in Daijin Set's POV. I'm talking about armored griffins, and yeah, you can actually see the armored griffin in the cover art of the second book, and yeah, it's just so cool. Daijin Set is a Vulcan. Vulcan is kind of like the Witcher of the world of Vedra, and the way his story develops felt the most easy to connect to for me, because there is a clear beginning and progression, and it's just fun seeing how the two time frames from Daijin Sets, which takes place in the past, and also the present timeline, how both of these actually converge and connect to one another. I really enjoyed all the many POV characters, but Daijin definitely take the spotlight for me. And seriously, as I said, some of the actions here, they were just so insane. Dragons, griffins, and also high and fast-paced and also very exciting aerial combat. It's incredible what Philip C. Quaintrell does with the aerial combat in Once There Were Heroes. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading the second book, and of course the ending of this one is super exciting, quite surprising as well. And that kind of ending actually kind of surprised me, because if you know Philip C. Quaintrell, he writes books he tends to get surprised by the progression of his storyline, because he doesn't plan too many things. He has some things that he has planned, but not the majority of them are actually planned by him. It happens as he writes the story, but at the same time, when this kind of revelation happens, it felt like he has planned it all along, and I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. I gave this one, I think, a 4 out of 5 stars rating. The characters definitely took some time to get used to, longer than Asher and his gang, but it is worth it by the end. I'm excited to find out how their storyline, each character will progress in the next book. And I think I'll be reading that within this year as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the 3 novels. And also, I guess this is like a 3 reviews of the books that I read in the month of February, March, and also April. I don't know how things will progress from here. Right now, I'm reading A Splintered Sun. I'm almost done. By the end of this video, I will be finishing that book. So that's another big book finished in my reading. And after that, I think I will be reading some shorter books. I need to, because it's just taking so much time for me to read this 300,000 words up to 400,000 words long novel. At the current situation I'm in life, it's just not efficient to read these books. I want to read so many books, and I think I will be diving into some shorter books for now. But anyway, as I said, the best book that I read in the month of February up to the month of April, well, of course, it is The Lonesome Dove. And I think that is actually the best book of the year so far for me. The second place will be The Last Contract of Isako by Fonda Lee. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me today. Do let me know what you think about the books that I talk about in today's video. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Bye-bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons who keep on supporting me.